When teams cite a track as more punishing than the 24 hours at Le Mans, you know it's going to be a challenge. Sebring International Raceway has had time to age and mature, and like many things that age, it's gotten a little lumpy. The bumps that have become the signature of this circuit are expected to be one of the talking points. But like the drivers of the era these cars hail from, our competitors today are more focused on just sucking it up and dealing with it. We'll see who manages the challenges best as we get ready to watch round 5 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Adam, we've of course seen many Kamel GT races here before, but we might have new viewers, so why don't you fill us in on the track?
No problem, Joe. For those of you who may be new to this track, Sebring International Speedway was built on the decommissioned Hendricks Field Army Air Force training base and has proclaimed itself as America's oldest road circuit. Sebring clocks in at about 3.74 miles or 6.02 kilometers of mixed asphalt and concrete in its modern configuration, and it is one unique track. While this circuit has undergone extensive renovation over the years, it has maintained one crucial element. As Joe mentioned, the ever-bumpy, ever-tense concrete slabs of Sunset Bend and the front straight. Sebring has been the location of many historic races over the years, and is today the host of the 12 Hours and 1,000 Miles of Sebring. With such a historic pedigree, there is no argument that this southern Florida circuit is one of the crown jewels in the world of sports car racing, making the likes of the Nissan GTP and Audi GTO right at home, though in different ways. The Nissan's high downforce makes the likes of Sunset Bend and Turn 1 a breeze, while the Audi's quick speed off the slow corners makes tackling the hairpin, Cunningham, and tower turn quite an exciting, sideways adventure at times. But enough chit-chat about this legendary course. Let's get right to the action and take a ride around Sebring International Speedway in our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Clayton McLeod in the GSRC Nissan, so let's do a lap around Sebring. Turn 1 tends to be a good passing spot in most cars, but in the Nissan, this thing is terrifying. You carry a ton of speed through here, but just pray that the bumps don't unsettle the car. Keep on hugging the right side on the short run down to turn 3. There's a late apex here, but make sure not to clip the inside curb. From there, you're right into 4 and 5. Once again, turning in late is the desirable line through 5. But here you've got to try and get the power down quickly. Big bend and the blast towards the hairpin are flat out the whole way. This will probably be the most popular overtaking spot since it's a long acceleration zone into a very heavy braking zone. Just be careful when surrounded by other cars because it'll be easy to overshoot and plow into someone ahead of you. What's really tricky is trying not to spin the car out as the turbo kicks in. Turns 8 and 9 are simply about lessening your steering input to keep your speed up. And then comes another good place to attempt to pass, Cunningham. But if you find yourself side by side coming off the corner, it can be bad news. Collier is narrow with very little runoff on either side. Then there's the difficult curved braking for Tower. This is another inside curve that I highly advise not mounting. At last, there's a little breather until you have to attack Bishop. Take this as a single arc even though there's 2 apexes. On exit, make sure and stay to the left for the best entry into Jean de Bien. There's paved runoff, but getting to slow down here can really hurt you. And it's critically important to get a good run off of Le Mans anyway. Once you get dumped onto the Ullman Straight, it's a long, long ways until sunset. Even though the draft isn't as effective in the Nissan, getting a bad run might mean finding yourself too wide into the corner, and that is going to be extra scary. Just look at how much speed you take into the kink. Manage the car over the bumps and then smoothly bring the power back in. This brings us back onto the front stretch to start it all over again. Hopefully you kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Sebring.
You see the bumps really in action from the onboard view, gives you a sense of how much you're jostled around out here. Let's take a look at the points, though, before we get to the qualifying, which has just kicked off. Of course, the GTP is being led by Fabian Gerber with his great rebound this season compared to how Ardo Iamaki seemed to have one over in last season. In fact, you can see Iamaki down in 3rd at the moment. Just hasn't really had a good season to follow up his championship. John Keefe remains in 4th, and Fabian Jungbluth actually jumps up to the top 5 with last round, just within striking distance of P4. Let's look at the GTP lights, and up there at the top. Hideki Koivisto has got a decent gap back to Johnny Bell, who has just found himself now into the second spot. Johnny's been having a decent season. David Slee is the one that's demoted because of that. There's only 4 drivers competing in the GTP lights this season. Mike Kopak back there in 4th. What about the 2 Audi championships? Adam, what have we got over there?
Absolutely. So the GTO standings are similar to the GTP standings in the sense that Rob Olenek is leading right now, and Ben Lafter in second place, 29 points behind, and Milan Arnozzi, after challenging for the championship last season, is down in third, 34 points behind. Closely following behind him, only 4 points behind that, is Nicholas Mukanos from the Dirty Torques Saline team, and then Dennis Neidhart comes in 5th position, 49 points behind. And then for the GTU championship, we have Reed Miller leading with 14 points in front of Caden Bean. Reed's had a really good season so far. Michael Haynes, with his consistency, only 1 point behind Caden Bean in 3rd position. Then we have Sergey Serbin, 1 point behind him in 4th position. A super tight battle there for that 2nd position in the points. And then James Walker in 5th.
And if you've never watched the Kamel GT series before, here's a few details about what we're about to witness. We are in round 5. As we mentioned, it is going to be a sprint race compared to last week. We had the Enduro at Laguna Seca, only 40 minutes today. Now, that means that there is no scheduled stop for fuel this time. You can see the scoring gives you 25 points for win. They also, of course, don't have a spare car, so they will not be able to hop into a fresh machine if they get any sort of damage. You got to deal with it and come into the pits, or just stay out there and try to gut it out. Of course, this whole season has been covered by iRacing on their IESN. If you would like to make sure that that all shows up in your feed, all you got to do is subscribe. There's a big red button on their YouTube page that says subscribe, and you'll get all of not just the Kamel GT series, but the official iRacing World Championship series in your YouTube feed. Taking a look at the qualifying that's gone down, well, Fabian Gerber's up there, but Justin Albrecht right now is outpacing him. His second lap just finished, and he was not able to improve. He's still got nearly half a second over Gerber, and that's actually been chopped down to 0.3 of a second because Iamaki now finds himself P2. Hagner, in the meantime, Adam, is dominating even more than that down in the Audis.
Yeah, definitely. He's got almost a second on Milan Arnozzi. Ove Trengerade in 3rd position is only 0.15 behind Milan, but with the laps winding down, it's going to be interesting to see whether anyone can put one up on Joni Hagner. He just puts in a faster time, actually, goes a couple tenths quicker, so looks like he might have pull on lock here.
Oof, bad news, because we've seen in the past when Hagner gets up into the lead, the only thing that really stops him is misfortune with lap traffic. This is Milan Arnozzi, who is working his way through Sunset Bend. Arnozzi with a number of wins last season. He's got a 59-1 on the board. A lot of time that he's got to make up to try and get to pole, and he doesn't improve at all. He's about 3/100ths off of his fastest time.
We're taking a look at Ove Trengere going through Sunset as well on his next lap. We'll see whether he can improve, see whether he can knock Arnozzi out of the second spot. He crosses the line, and he does not improve, 59.332. So he's going to stay right there in 3rd position.
A lot of drivers seeming to struggle to find the pace, whatever Yoni's done to make this car as fast as it is. Just about a minute left here in qualifying. This is Johnny Bell sitting down in 16th. He is on his second flying lap. And I will say that it took me until now to really notice, because I knew that Johnny has this homage to some of the classic retro schemes that the real cars used to run back in the Class C cars, prototypes in the late 80s. But it only just struck me that it says Smooth Incision on there. So I thought that was kind of clever of him to find his own little spoof of that. So as the Pennsylvania driver, he sits in 16th. We know he can do better than that, and crosses the line of 49.8. That's a big improvement, but unfortunately not an improvement on his position. He stays 16th.
Yeah, Steven Schlacher coming through as well, finishing up his qualifying. He's going to bump up to 13th position now. And as the drivers clear the track for the race, we're going to go to the grid.
Absolutely. We've got Justin Albrecht up on the pole. Glad to see him back and running, showing that he still has pace in this car, even though he hasn't been present at every round. Artie Amaki's next to him on the front row, and he's outpaced Fabian Gerber, the driver he's been trying to beat all season. Gerber will start third, and on the outside of him, another fast driver that doesn't always show up all that often, Carl Jansen in row 2. Steve Bycroft will be P5 with Alex Saunders, a known presence here on the Global Sim Racing channel over in the Lionheart Series, multi-time winner over there. We'll start 6th. Let's see how he handles a very similar car here in the Nissan. Phil Lake will be P7 with Martin Krejcik starting 8th. Then you've got Tobias Gerber, an unusually low qualifying for Tobias, you have to admit. Usually he is among the first 3 rows. He's down in 9th now. Luis Emerton qualified in 10th, and Fabian Jungbluth will be 11th. Vance Bow will be P12. Stefan Schlacher hops out of the booth from a couple hours ago in the Lotus 49 with me. He's going to take a race around in the Nissan here at Sebring in 13th off the grid. John Keefe next to him, P14. Stephen Warkup will be 15th and Johnny Bell 16th. Then it's Hideki Koivisto, the last of the GTP cars to get a lap time in. Erwin Woodstra in 8th. Behind them, Mark Schmidling in 19th, and Ryan Lang, the last of our Nissans. Adam?
All right, Yoni Hagner's going to start on pole in the GTOs in the Audis. Milan Arnozzi is going to start right next to him. We've seen the pace that both of them have during races, so it'll be interesting to see how they battle in the opening laps. Ove Trangarade coming up in 3rd position and Nicholas Mukanos in 4th. They've also got pace. Rob Olenek a surprising 5th. Usually he's further up in the qualifying order. Ben Lafter coming in 6th position. We have Dennis Neidhart in 7th position there, right next to Jarno Sapola. And then Tanner McCullough down there in the 9th position alongside Reed Miller, Kevin Binkley, Sergey Serbin, Stefanovic Boris, and Michael Haynes are going to round out our GTOs.
They've already taken off on the pace lap here around Sebring. Now, I don't usually get to have a regular driver here next to me in the booth in this series. Of course, we always try and do our research, and our co-coms are experienced in familiarizing themselves with the vehicles. But, Adam, you've had a lot of time, especially out in the Audi around here. So if the drivers are listening, what advice would you give them coming into this race that's about to happen?
Patience, 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 especially through turn 1. Things are going to bunch up as the field compresses into these slow corners of turn 2, 3, and 4. And so these guys have got to be extremely patient. Coming up here to the hairpin, this is an excellent passing spot, but early on, this is a place where your race can end very quickly. Like I said, just be patient and just wait for things to settle out and then start picking your way up the field. You don't want to burn off those tires early.
See that GTO field now working through the hairpin. It is a beautiful 75 degrees out here in Florida, and with the sun going down, that means the track temperature is actually pretty low too, 78 degrees on the surface. Little bit of wind blowing about on this somewhat flat track. That could catch a few drivers out depending on if it gusts, but otherwise ideal racing conditions. It is a little bit late in the day, though. I'm seeing nearly 7 p.m. virtual standard time. And, well, we've seen it get a little bit dark previously for those Audis, Adam, so hopefully the sun doesn't go down too soon.
Yeah, and this is a far cry from the last time we covered this car combination on this track, which was the Majors Series race, where it was much warmer. So these cars are going to be going significantly faster around this track than that broadcast, and it'll be very interesting to see whether guys can hold on to the grip and whether the visibility will become an issue as the sun sets going into Sunset Bend. Funny, the name. It tells you where the sun's going to set.
Very appropriate as we look out the 007 cam of Carl Jansen. He tends to be something of an aggressive driver. I wouldn't be surprised if he attempts to work himself up and see if he can maybe sneak a win from some of these other racers. They're now hitting the Ullman Straight, racing behind that Porsche pace car. Just witnessed the first round in the eSports Porsche Cup here on iRacing. If you get a chance after this race, definitely go give that a glance. Glad to see Porsche getting as involved as they are in the world of sim racing, offering up such an awesome prize here. But Sunset Bend now for that Porsche, as it's going to be led by Justin Albrecht on the pole. This is that bumpy corner we've been talking about so far. Pace cars in. Justin Albrecht away. Green flag is out here for round 5 of the Kamel GT series. He immediately moves off to the racing line as he's able to cut off Iamaki. Iamaki looks to the inside anyways. Gerber behind him around the outside. That is Carl Janssen trying to carry the speed. Otherwise, it looks pretty clean through the first corner. Let's go to the Audis.
Rob Olenek had a big incident where he was hit down there, so Joni Hagner has taken off, and Milan Arnozzi has followed him in. It's going to be Joni Hagner with a significant lead going into the first couple of corners. There's a good battle behind him, but this field is thinned out significantly because of that accident with Rob Olenek in Sunset Bend.
And Phil Lake has had a problem. He got turned in turn 5. I understand we've got the replay for Rob a little bit later, but we watch the GTOs now come up to the hairpin. All of them crunching up together, and you can see that lone Nissan stuck in there is Phil Lake trying to recover.
Absolutely, getting stuck behind these cars this early on is really a struggle for the GTPs. He's going to have to cut his way through, and these GTOs are going to have to move over. That's going to slow them down and open up passing opportunities for the cars behind.
We've got a big incident. Vance Bow involved in the GTOs. Looks like John Keefe. Tobias Gerber completely off track. I believe this started with Keefe getting into the back of Gerber.
Yeah, looked like they were just trying to slow down for that corner there, and Keefe didn't expect Gerber to slow down that much, and so just carried too much speed in. We've got more cars off now entering the back straight.
Yeah, that's
3 GTPs.
Stephen Warkup as we come back live. Johnny Bell. Oh, excuse me. We're looking at the replay of Rob Olenek, so we can figure out what happened around.
Yeah, Ben Laughter just packed it too hard into Sunset Bend and washed out wide into Rob, and that's an unfortunate situation. As we go on board with Laughter here, we're going to watch him as he hits the brakes here, and with cold tires he just gets a little tight and washes out into Rob, and that sends him around and into the inside.
It almost looked like a little bit of ghost contact from my screen, but boy, the leaders in the GTOs have a handful, because now they got multiple of the GTP cars trying to work their way through as they fight for the top spots. But we've jumped back up towards the front, because this is Albrecht and Carl Janssen. Janssen down to the inside into Cunningham, and he's going to be able to sneak that one away. Up ahead of them, we missed that Ardo Iamaki has found himself in the lead ahead of these two.
Ardo's a hard charger, and we know what he can do with the lead. He tends to take off, and so we'll see whether or not he can maintain it in front of Carl. With those two battling behind him, though, it looks like he has a good shot to pull away a couple seconds.
In fact, he already has got a gap of about 1.3, 1.4 seconds over Janssen. Now that Janssen's free of Albrecht, does he have the pace to gun him down? Behind them, surprisingly, Gerber not doing so hot today. He's still in 4th. Alex Saunders in P5 has been applying pressure.
Definitely, as we see these GTPs start to string out, they're going to crank up the lap times, and that's going to make the guys who are stuck battling through the GTOs from those earlier incidents, they're in serious trouble. They're going to have to make up a lot of time or hope that the leaders have trouble, or else they're going to be stuck mired mid-pack for the rest of the race.
You can see them here back amongst the likes of Arnozzi, Mukanos, and Laughter. That is still Schmedling, Bell, and Warkup that we were watching. Had their issues coming through Sunset Bend. That's Hagner ahead of Warkup.
Oh, we've had another problem. It looks like Tobias Gerber has hit the inside wall, maybe trying to go into the pit.
Yeah, he did have that contact earlier, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had to get some damage fixed.
Here he comes through Sunset Bend, and it looks like Yeah, it looks like the bumps just catch him off guard. His setup's a little tight, and so he slides. Wow, he managed not to hit anything. He almost, just barely did not hit the pit entry wall. That is an amazing, amazing save from Tobias.
Well, as amazing of a save as it is, it puts him all the way down 19th in his class and amongst the Audis like the others who had their problems at Le Mans on lap 1. So
Yeah.
This has been a bit of a nightmare situation for a number of these prototypes.
Yeah, now we're getting a chance to really see the speed differential and the challenge of trying to make passes here on this track. Because the racing line switches from left to right across these faster curves, it makes it really difficult for the GTPs to decide where they're going to make passes and where they're going to improve their position in front of these GTOs. As you can see, they're getting stuck up behind Joni Hagner. Joni Hagner's the fastest GTO in class, but still, Mark's having a hard time getting past him, and he finally makes the move.
Yeah, this is not good for Hagner. We said it was maybe traffic that could cause him headaches. Well, it certainly is right now. That's Tobias Gerber finding his way by to the right side of Hagner. And he's going to have to deal with one more. Oh, Johnny Bell actually just about made contact with Milan Arnozzi. I think he barely stayed out of him.
It's an extremely tense time with these GTPs trying to make it past this early. These guys are in a super big rush because they know the amount of time that they're losing to the front. So this is a time where Joni just has to give more than he takes because he's got a good gap. But he washes out wide in Sunset because of that give, and that's going to allow the likes of Milan Arnozzi to close the gap a little bit.
Johnny Bell actually ran into the wall on the outside of Sunset Bend, just pancaked the left side. That's why you see Milan Arnozzi back in front of him. Then we've got this battle for the lead. I asked whether or not Carl Janssen had the pace to catch Ardo Iamaki. I'd say that is an affirmative.
That's a little surprising because last season Ardo was so dominant, but looks like Carl Janssen has come in to really put a challenge to Ardo Iamaki this season, and it's turning out to be a great battle here as Carl's got a pretty decent run, but he has to back out a little bit to try and avoid getting in the grass there, but he's still in the draft, and while the toe's not as important in the GTPs as it is in the GTOs, he's still got a good toe, and he might look at something here in Sunset.
Whoa, around the outside, deep onto the brakes. I said he was an aggressive driver, but that is a fantastic move, and I think he's going to make it stick. Carl Janssen with a stunner to take the lead away. He's still being attacked, though. Here comes Iamaki trying to go around the outside of turn 1. Just doesn't have the grip or the bravery. And all this fighting has allowed Justin Albrecht to cut that gap down to the top 2.
I've never seen someone with more confidence than Ardo Iamaki in a GTP, but Carl Janssen has really made that move stick in a way that I've never seen before. That was super impressive.
Just unbelievable. All this action has been happening up at the top of the GTPs, and the poor GTOs haven't gotten much visual other than watching the prototypes try to work their way back past them. Well, that's mainly because it's been pretty spread out, it seems, down there, Adam.
Yeah, it's definitely been spread out here as we look at Dennis Neidhart in the 5th position trying to make up time on Laughter. Wow, he gets super hard on the brakes, and Ove Trangarate almost overruns him. Looks like Trangarate's going to get a run here. But yeah, these guys got spread out because of the GTPs that were coming through the field. So as the race continues forward, we'll see the guys in the back start to bunch up to the guys in the front a little bit as the pace differential set into these open setups.
On turn 1, we ride on board with Trangarate at the tail of this trio, and I can report that Olenek has since gotten over the chat, and he has told Laughter that that contact was indeed ghost contact, so he's not mad about it, just the unfortunate realities of racing on the internet. Neidhart still giving chase to Laughter down into the hairpin. He's close, but not close enough.
And while we're looking at this battle, there's another one back there for 7th position. Sapola has come up on the back of McCullough, and Sergey Serbin's come up on the back of Sapola, and they're all stacked up behind Tanner McCullough right now as they try and make up time from those GTPs coming through.
See at the top of your screen, Carl Janssen, since taking the lead, has been off like a shot. He set the fastest lap of the race. He's already almost a second ahead of Iamaki. Let's stay on this battle Oh, I see. As we watch them work their way through tower.
It looks like McCullough is a little loose under braking. He's having a hard time getting the car wound down. Those rear tires are spinning a little bit, and that's the challenge with this four-wheel drive, is that you can really struggle with locking up some different parts of the car, and it feels good to slide around, but it's not the fastest way around the track. You heat up your tires, and then you have a seriously hard time later on in the run.
Already 10 minutes into this race. On to the long Ullman straight, and Sebring got a great run. Look at him start to close on Yarno. I don't think he's going to have enough straightaway, though, and eventually he backs out of it.
And up ahead of them, we have a serious battle going on right now. Ben Laughter, Dennis Neidhart, Nove Trangerade. And Laughter and Neidhart are side by side right now going down the front stretch. We'll see whether or not Dennis Neidhart can make a move here. He goes around the outside.
Going to try to make it stick. He's got four-wheel drive in his favor. He is going to be able to keep it side by side, but he's a little bit behind. He's deeper onto the brakes into turn 3. Gutsy move up and over the curb. Dennis Neidhart makes it work, and that moves him into P4.
Very impressive move there. He just stuck it in there and forced Laughter to back out. That was a really impressive and very racy move, but Laughter's going to try and go for it here on the hairpin. No, he decides better and back.
And as that was happening, Stefan Schlacker had some problems through Tower Corner. I think this was all on his own. See, he's returned in 11th place. Qualified in 13th, so he's still up a number of positions. Here's the replay.
Oh my gosh, he got super airborne there over the inside of that corner. It's a miracle he didn't hit anything, but that's still going to damage the underside aero a bit, and that might slow him down.
Let's watch from bike cross view. Woohoo! Lost it under braking. Bounce around. That's rare that you see these cars bounce that much.
Yeah, the suspensions are set a little bit looser here because of the bumps out of Sunset and through down the main straight. So you'll see them bounce around more than they will at most other track.
Back live now. Bycroft gets promoted to 8th due to that. Can we go up a little higher in the GTPs? Because Fabian Gerber giving chase on Albrecht for 3rd. Well, he's still got some attention to be paid to his mirrors, because Alex Saunders has been staying right with him, and you can see just how close he's getting in some of these corners.
Yeah, Saunders has excellent mid-corner speed, and that's allowing him to carry more speed off the corners than the two guys ahead of him. That's why Saunders has moved up significantly, as you see some weaving happening down the straights. Very interesting strategy. We'll see how it works for him. It looks like Albrecht is going to go for the move on the inside, and Saunders is going to follow him through this contact.
Oh, Albrecht tipped around both of them into the barriers, and Gerber is the one that's able to take advantage. He's now up into 3rd. Saunders badly damaged, can't get the car going.
Yeah, it looked like Albrecht just didn't realize that Saunders was going for the dive and just decided to turn in. And then they made contact going through Sunset. And if you get these cars upset at all, they're just going to go around.
Yeah, he saw one go through. He knew Fabian was to the inside, but I'm guessing he didn't realize that Saunders was going to take advantage as well. I'm surprised after all that weaving that he stayed to the outside and gave Fabian the line.
Yeah, maybe there was some altercation that we didn't see earlier that made him a little frustrated, but now that he's going again, it looks like, yeah, Stefan Schlacker is moving up the field. He looks like he's going to try and make a pass here on the damaged Saunders. And there he goes.
Yeah, Saunders was able to return, but I think the damage too much, and he's going to pull over, call it a day, and take a tow.
Schlacker's got Philip Lake for company now. Philip Lake down quite a few positions from the beginning of the race. He was one of the ones that was caught up early in the wreck that happened going into the final straight, and so he's trying to make up positions as well. So these two are going to be battling for the rest of the race, it looks like.
See how Schlacker can withstand the pressure, especially with the performance that Lake has been putting on. If anything, the only reason I'd say that Lake is not leading this championship is he's had some atrocious luck. Had some battles that just didn't go his way, lap traffic that didn't go his way. Lake now looking to see if he can recover here at Sebring. continuing to hound the Austrian, Stefan Schlacker. They're onto the Ullman straight, and he's very close. It's a decent runoff as we ride on board. Steph going to defend. Blake's got the momentum. He looks to the inside. Steph stays to the outside. Under braking. Tries to hold on to it, but it's going to have to go to Philip Blake.
All right, so while this has been going to have a battle for P2 in the GTOs, Milan Arnozzi has been getting caught by Nicholas Makanos for the last couple of laps, and Makanos has really got the pressure going for Milan Arnozzi. Once again, that mid-corner speed for all of these cars on this track is really helping them out, and Makanos seems to have it better wound up in the corners.
Coming through Cunningham. Makanos just going to stalk him through these twisty bits. Try to see if he could find an opening, see if he could get close enough to even make an attack. You can see he's a little far back for the moment. We're 15 minutes into this race now, so we're getting relatively close to the halfway point.
Yeah, and as we watch, the track has actually heated up a little bit since the beginning of this race because of the cars driving around it. But here as we take a look right now, we're still looking at, I believe that is...
Looks like Janssen coming up behind him.
Yeah, it's Janssen coming up through, and he's going to make this battle a little bit more interesting by maybe taking a dive down here in Sunset, trying to take that inside line. No, he decides to think better of it and go around the outside. That's a smart move from Janssen.
And he's been dealing with all this lap traffic that they are fighting with now. What that traffic in Sunset Bend did is cut down his lead from 1.5 seconds to half a second. So Arturo Yamaki starting to see glances, some light at the end of the tunnel potentially, that maybe he could get one over Carl.
Lewis Emerton has gone around while battling for 5th position. Emerton now in the pits. He's decided to take a tow. That was just a bad... He dove super deep into Sunset to try and get a position, and looks like he just took it a little bit too deep, and it snaps on him, and he hits the outside wall.
Oof, unfortunate. Let's watch from on board. That was Bycroft that he was battling with. It looked okay, and then, oh, can't save it. Oh, it actually went on his lid, apparently.
Yeah, it looks like he was just a little bit too deep into the corner, and the rear tire's spinning a little bit too fast, and it started to come out for him, and he tried to save it, and it just snapped on him.
Well, the leader, still Carl Janssen up in the GTPs. Down in the GTOs, it is still Joni Hagner. Carl actually started from P4, we should remind our viewers. He has made great work out of the pace that he's got in this race, even if his qualifying wasn't as good as he thought. But we look at Reed and McCullough, and oh, what happened in Collier?
It looks like
McCullough got tipped, and he took a long time to save it. A little bit too long, unfortunately. Well, that's a first.
Yeah, it looks like McCullough decided to take Collier for a ride there.
Well, unfortunately, piggyback rides are not free, so eventually Miller had to get off. Yeah, there was just a little tip from, looked like it was a Dirty Torque prototype. Was that Lake, actually?
I think that might have been Justin Albrecht, and it looks like that. It seems like he disconnected after that incident, which is interesting because they don't have an incident limit here at this race.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Well, that's a shame for Justin. After putting it on pole and racing within the top 5, his day is over. So is McCullough, it looks like. Heavy damage to that car. We've jumped back to Arnozzi. As much as he would like to put another win in his repertoire, instead he's just battling to keep second in hand. Nick Mukanos continuing to apply pressure.
And they have Martin Krejcik coming up behind them, and this is going to make this battle interesting because he's catching them during one of the Audi's least performative spots, and we're going to see where he's going to make the move and how that's going to affect this battle right here. Watch the speed difference as they start going through these turns here.
And let's stay with this battle, but Krejcik This is an incredible performance from him, sneaking around the outside into tower. Can't quite out-accelerate the four-wheel drive of the Audi and Bycroft because of that. All over the back of Krejcik now. But Martin starting this race in 8th, running in 4th. This is one of the highest spots we've seen him in a while.
It looks like that's broken up the GTO battle quite a bit, but now that the GTPs go by and Milan has to let him by, that's closed it back up. And it looks like Mechanos has a good run now here down the back straight.
A good run, but not a good enough run. They break for Sunset Bend, and he's going to have to remain in P3. Meanwhile, we watch Bycroft chase Martin Krejcik out of Sunset Bend down the front stretch. As well as this battle for second in the GTOs. They got one more car behind them. That is Fabian Jungbluth. Jungbluth manages to go around the outside, but that compromises Mechanos' racing line.
Yeah, but now Jungbluth is stuck behind Milan Arnozzi, and that's going to make things very interesting. Wow, he almost gets into the back of him. He's just carrying a ton of speed into these corners and just thinking the Audi's going to move, and it's got to slow down a lot more than you think. And when you're driving these GTPs, the speed difference is quite a bit more than you'd expect, and so sometimes you get caught off guard by it.
Now that's Philip Lake behind them. Just can't get a rest from all this lap traffic. Right on board with Mechanos. There goes the likes of Lake. And I think as this has been happening, we had a problem with Stephen Warkup. And this also involved Stevanovic Boris. You could see the damage on the car, both of them making hard contact. This was out of turn 1. This started with Boris losing the car in front of him.
Oh, wow. Boris really lost it there coming through turn 1, and that caused War really clobber the outside wall. There was nowhere for him to go.
And but if we just hop over here in the replay to Arnozzi. Oh, we've come back live to Jansen. Well, Milan Arnozzi, unfortunately, has now lost the second place, and I really wouldn't put the blame on him too much.
Yeah, it looks like he was... Wow, as the battle goes right by him, like, here we go on the replay now. We're going to take a look at this, and he was just minding his own business. Yeah. Yeah, and here we go.
Was this Lake? I think it was Lake.
Yeah, I believe it was Lake. Lake just thought he was going to move a little bit more over in Tower Corner, and as you see, he's going to go straight through and hit his braking point, and Lake waiting patiently behind him. He's going to follow him through here, but then as they break for the next corner here, Cunningham, it looks like Lake just... Whoa, Lake takes an off track. I did not see that before.
Yeah, and unfortunately, without the grip, he just has to get into the side of Arnozzi. And watch from on board. Yeah, he tried to make a late movement, thinking he had the space, and that space disappeared in a heartbeat.
You may be thinking to yourself, why did Milan not let him through? Well, having driven the GTOs around this track, that is actually the hardest spot to see the GTPs behind you. They close a lot faster than you'd think, and it's really easy to lose sight of the GTP in your mirror, and I think that's what forced Phil Lake off track.
It shuffled him down to P4. Neidhart moves up onto the podium. Mechanos into second. It's about as high as Nick is going to go unless we get some major issues for Joni Hagner. It's now 10 seconds from first to second in GTO.
It looks like Yoni's making a really great run out there. He had a great qualifying. He was about a second a lap faster than everyone else for qualifying, and he's maintained that position now as he continues to push ahead. And as long as he doesn't make a mistake, he's going to hold on to that.
Is managing it like we've seen so many times from the Finn. Onto the front stretch to tick off another lap. I wonder if we could go back to 9th place in the GTPs. Stefan Schlacher actually recently got by Vance Bow and has since streaked away. Schlacher with his own issues in this race, still somehow managing up into 9th.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Schlacker considering the issue was kind of on his own, and so that's really caused him to fall back here. He was on for a top 5, but that issue just makes him fall back, now just clawing his way into the top 10.
So in general, this race has had some real surprises. This is 4th with Martin Krejcik, but look at the timing there at the bottom. Fabian Gerber up ahead of him in 3rd. Gerber's actually 9 seconds behind Iamaki right now. Fabian just, whether it's traffic or his own pace, has had nothing for Iamaki today.
That's really surprising. Fabian Gerber is usually one of our top runners. Usually he's up there really close, within like 2 or 3 seconds of the leader, and looks like he's been struggling with his setup today, a little bit tight through the corners, and that makes you slow down, makes your exit slower, and so that's been a real issue for him lately. As we take a look at Carl Janssen, he put in his fastest lap just a couple of laps ago, and he's actually pulled out almost a 3-second gap now on Arto Iamaki, which is extremely impressive.
Let's see if they have any traffic in front of them. Nope, it is basically clear road for quite a while. So that's bad news for Iamaki, because Carl at this point can stretch his legs out and really show what he can do in this GTPX. Meanwhile, we jump back down to Bao, who gets back Stefan Schlacker. And Schlacker's not done with it yet. He's going to come back to the inside, down into turn 1. Vance Bao seeing if he can fend him off. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to. He's going to try for an over-under, though. He's not giving up. Oh, a little bit of weaving back and forth, and Steph gets tipped around.
Yeah, I'm not sure about how that block would have worked. He was a little late into the braking zone for that move, but it looks like Bao just was not expecting Steph to come back across. Steph got a little loose coming out of the first turn, and actually it just looks like Bao just didn't quite brake early enough for Steve's move back across the track.
I can understand why he got into him, though, because he was going left and it looked like he was going to cover off the left, and then when he went back to go right, it looked like Steph made the same move. Bit of miscommunication, unfortunately, left Steph the worst of the two. Vance Bao now solidifies P9.
If we could take a look at the P4 and the GTOs, Milan Arnozzi, after that accident with Phil Lake, is now under pressure from Ove Trangarade. Trangarade's been gaining time in the last couple of laps. Milan's tires look a little spent from that spin, whereas Ove's are a little spent from clawing his way up the field. He had some trouble early on, though. He's back 2 positions from his starting position of 3rd place, so he wants this position desperately from Milan.
Certainly keeping him honest. With 12 minutes to go, see if he can do this. Ove, as is typical for him, willing to really get the car sideways in places.
He's being extremely desperate right now as they come up on the lapped car of Michael Haynes. Michael Haynes having a decent run here. He's being extremely consistent, whereas these two behind him have had their troubles. So it's just interesting to see the differences between the GTU and the GTO classes and what the goals are. These two guys behind him are being extremely aggressive, whereas Michael Haynes knows that if he's just consistent, he can lob a good points day in 10th position.
Through Sunset Bend, much stronger from Milan Arnozzi. Puts a gap between himself and Trangarade. Norwegian's got a little bit of ground to make up now. If you're just joining us, welcome to round 5 here of the Kamel GT Series here at Sebring International Raceway. This has been a little bit of a wild one. Certainly some moves that may have some discussions take place after the race. We've got a close battle back in 10th for GTP. Tobias Gerber, remember his issues earlier on. He's got Erwin Woodstra just ahead of him. Erwin's been doing his own little climb, honestly. He started 18th. He's in 10th.
Yeah, his run has been extremely impressive, and Tobias has just fallen off the pace a little bit here, the brother of Fabian, and these two have have been battling a little bit the last couple of laps here.
Phil Lake.
Oh, and here we...
Yeah, he's run down Jungbluth, and he's got him on the front stretch. He could take a dive to the inside. He's got a lot of speed. He is going to take a look. Gets the car down to the apex. Can he power it off, though? Indeed, he does. He demotes Jungbluth to 7th as Philip Lake now gets himself back up to 6th.
And sadly, that closing speed was not natural. Jungbluth has some aerodynamic damage, which is making him slower on the straights. That's going to cause some issues for him. He's still up 4 positions from his starting position, but with that aerodynamic damage, he's going to be in the clutches of John Keefe by the end of this race.
Now, I've been keeping half an eye here and there on this battle. This is for 4th. Krejcik and the green and white machine. Bycroft and the yellow car. And Bycroft has been tantalizingly close a number of times, but I'm yet to see him really have a go at a pass. I'm not sure what's keeping Steve back, but he's got a very Sisyphus-like situation going on.
And considering that Krejcik is 20 seconds behind Gerber, it makes sense that Bycroft realizes that this is the only position he might be able to make up. So if he's saving his tires for the end of the race, that actually might be a good strategy, knowing that that Krejcik's position might be the farthest he can get up the field.
We'll see when it gets down to the final couple laps if he gets a little bit more aggressive, makes some more daring moves. Got less than 9 minutes to go. Report that the battle we were watching between Arnozzi and Trangarade has separated slightly. It's 0.8 between them, so Milan's got the car underneath him now. Continue to see Krejcik and Bycroft. Oh, is a big slide into the corner, and still Steve can't do anything with it.
Sometimes when people start sliding like that, you get a little nervous and you back out because you don't want to get hit. It's been 30 minutes in this race, and you've been racing for a long time. You've been fighting for a lot of positions.
Jensen had a problem. Sorry to interrupt. Jensen has lost the lead. And it was traffic, and poor Milan Arnozzi. It was almost a carbon copy of what we saw with him and Lake, except this time he didn't wind up in the wall. It was Carl Jensen.
We take a look here as they go through Tower Turn. They're going to come here around these couple of corners here and going into Cunningham. It's the same problem. Milan Arnozzi just does not spot the GTP on the inside, and it looks like Carl Jensen just decides to take the grass instead, and way too bumpy, gets unsettled, and it is a carbon copy, like you said.
Yeah, since spinning, you can see how hard he hit. We're going to watch Milan's perspective.
As we take a look here, Milan just following the racing line, doesn't realize that Carl's behind him, and then Carl just comes straight across. That probably was a surprise to him, honestly.
Yeah, I would think so. And the damage is so bad that Jensen's now lost 2nd as well. Fabian Gerber has gotten by. Iamaki finally thanking his lucky stars that they've been shining on him for once.
Yeah, he's not had the best luck this season, but it looks like this race, honestly, fallen into his hands. And so his luck looks to be on a turnaround here as long as he can keep it clean.
Well, as they tend to say, you make your own luck in racing, and I'd say he put himself in that position. Unfortunately, Stefan Schlacker has put himself in the pits, and this one was definitely on his own. He spun out of Le Mans and into the concrete barrier.
It looks like the turbo lag got the better of him, and so did the grass, and we've seen that accident happen a lot, and it's really hard to carry the speed through Milan as you go down onto the back straight, and sometimes guys just struggle with that as we take a look at Ardo trying to make it past some lap traffic here on the back straight as well.
He sneaks on by Mukanos, who's still retaining 2nd place. Dennis Neidhart has caught him slightly. It's about a 2nd between them, so that could get interesting towards the end, depending if Dennis has anything left in those tires.
You know, speaking of catching them, Fabian Gerber has made up 1 whole second on Ardo Iamaki that last lap. There's about 5 minutes left in this race, so that would give Fabian Gerber enough time to catch up to the back of Ardo. This race for the lead in GTP might not be over.
I kind of wonder if Gerber saw what happened with Janssen, sees that the driver ahead is now the leader, and thinks, well, might as well push if I could get a win out of this one. You see the Austrian, or the DH driver, excuse me, coming through Big Bend down towards the hairpin.
It's all going to depend on how they navigate the traffic that's ahead of them. The next car for Ardo Iamaki to pass is Ryan Lang, and he's a lap GTP driver. That makes it even more difficult to pass. Then comes the leader in the GTOs, Joni Hagner. These guys do not have an easy path forward in these last couple of laps.
With the laps being just under 2 minutes, there's very few of them left on the board. Let's jump back to 4th, though, in GTP, because Bycroft, once again, getting himself within about half a second of Krejcik. Can he actually do anything with it this time?
And we'll see whether it's go time yet for Bycroft. We'll see as they catch up to Carl Janssen. This might be the opportunity for Bycroft to make a pick here out of Janssen and get the pass on both him and Martin.
This is effectively going to be for the podium, then. Janssen is absolutely limping around the track. He's trying to pull out of the way for Krejcik, catches him at an awkward spot in Bishop. Now he can stay off to the left for Steve Bycroft, still compromises his racing line slightly. That worked out a little bit better for Krejcik, it looks like.
But not the exit here, as Sapola gets quite a bit loose right in front of Krejcik, and Steve Bycroft is going to get the benefit of the draft here. He's going to pull out and go by. He's got significantly more speed here going into Sunset, way too far back to make a move, but these lap cars are going to play a significant factor in the end of this race for sure.
Certainly has so far. Now, I see that second place in the GTOs has closed in even more. Mukanos and Neidhart now in the thick of a battle, and look it down into turn 3. I asked whether Dennis had saved anything on his tires, and it certainly looks like he's strong right now.
Looks like Dennis has saved his stuff, and Mukanos might be spent. You could see Mukanos getting extremely loose and using that four-wheel drive to grip off the corners. Let's see how they do through the hairpin here, because that's the most telling corner of all for how your tires are doing. Mukanos still a little loose coming in and out, and Dennis Neidhart's still got it wound up.
Stays right at the tire tracks of Nick, the Californian, seeing if he could fend off the DH driver. Doesn't make an attempt, down into Cunningham. Now through Collier. Thankfully, no GTP traffic for them this time through. And into Tower. Dennis, close, but just needs to get that little bit tighter up to the rear of Nick Mukanos if he wants to be able to attack.
And I know Dennis, I've raced side by side with him multiple times, and Dennis is an extreme respectful racer. He's going to give you as much room as you need. This might be one of those times where you have to pinch him a little bit to make him make a mistake. We'll see whether he can achieve that.
Looks to gun it off the corner. Ooh, this is a good run. Look at how close he's staying, and Mukanos knows it. He's trying to weave to break the draft. It's not going to work. Neidhart is still gaining on him. Takes the inside line down into Sunset Bend. Neidhart breaking a little bit early, staying behind him. Could we see an over-under potentially? Onto the front stretch. He's going to get a second bite of the apple. Another little bit of slipstream, but he's not going to stay within it. They go around the car of Reed Miller. That's a lapped car. Down into the first corner yet again. Nothing doing for Dennis Neidhart.
He might have an opportunity on the inside here. He's going to have to be late on the brakes if he wants to do it. But Mukanos blocking it off very well, parking himself in the middle of the track. That's a good defensive line. I'm very impressed with Mukanos' defending right now.
And unfortunately, Dennis Neidhart now has Martin Krejcik coming up behind him. We might be on the last lap as well. Keeping an eye on the leader as we continue to stay on this battle. We'll go to them if we get the checkered flag. Two battles come together down into the hairpin. Oh no! And Bycroft gets turned around with a little bit of netcode. Neidhart looks to managed to get that spot away from Mukanos. Not the way that we wanted to see that one settled.
And that splits up our two best battles right now. But surprisingly, Mukanos is still hanging on to the back of Neidhart. He might be able to come back and take this from him if Neidhart makes a mistake.
The leader, Ardo Iamaki, is coming around Sunset Bend now. If it's the last lap, we'll get the checkered flag, and it won't be. This is white flag this time now for Ardo Iamaki. One more time around.
We go back to the battle here with Neidhart and Mukanos. Mukanos hungry now. He gets a pretty decent exit. Neidhart's going to do the same move that Mukanos did, but he's going to decide to stay on the inside and force Mukanos to get out of the draft to make a good line through Sunset.
Comes back to the racing line. Onto the front stretch. I'm pretty sure Mukanos is going to want this one back. Right up underneath him. Less than a car length behind, coming down the front straightaway. Just not enough of it. Although he's going to take a look down to the first corner, just a bit of a feint. This GTP coming up behind him is actually Phil Lake, who's now in fourth, we should report, because of all the problems that's happened in front of him. Oh! Both cars having problem. Neidhart tries to turn in and there's a car there, and Mukanos loses it under braking.
Yeah, Mukanos just held the brakes a little bit too much, seeing the accident happening in front of him, and that's going to put him right out of this battle. That's going to give Neidhart second position if all else works out for him.
Well, the racing gods tend to throw out a little bit of chaos when it comes to traffic, especially here in the Kamel GT series. But our leader is now coming down the Ullman Straight. Ardo Iamaki. It may have been a little bit luck in his favor, and Fabian Gerber did keep him under pressure as he's now within a second of that number 6 car, but it's not close enough. Ardo Iamaki going to take a victory here today at Sebring. Gerber's going to follow him home in P2.
Kraytrick 30 seconds behind, coming through
Le Mans.
Coming through the final corner now, yeah.
And actually right behind our leader in the GTO, Joni Hagner. Hagner's going to let him by. He's got a 20-second gap to the next car behind, so he really doesn't need it. In fact, he's going to give us a little bit of a show, looking to do that little finish flick through Sunset Bend sideways, using up those tires. He doesn't need them anymore. The number 2 car going to take victory in the GTO.
We got a big battle here with Milan Arnozzi and Ove Trangarate. Ove Trangarate going around the inside here. He's going to see whether he can hang on to it. Milan's going to try and challenge him through the final corner here, Sunset Bend. As they go through, they're going to try and battle it out, but it looks like Milan might be out of fuel. Misshift from Milan Arnozzi.
Oh, gutting on the final corner. Wow, so that means our podium's going to be Neidhart second, after Hagner and Mukanos taking third. That's going to be the last of our cars crossing the line bit by bit. What a fascinating one. Lots to unpack, and we'll do that during the post-race. But before we get there, we'll have the upcoming races here on our screen, here on GSRC, and then we'll get to the post-race interviews as well as the official results.
Growing up as a kid in Oklahoma, where I'm from, the Chili Bowl is the biggest race that we have. The Chili Bowl has kind of been my favorite race of the year. Growing up a dirt racer in Oklahoma, that's kind of the holy grail.
back to Sebring International Raceway. We just watched round 5 here in the Kamel GT series. So far this season has been Fabian Gerber's, but today it was not. The race went to Arto Iamaki. He didn't lead the whole way. In fact, he didn't even start on the pole. It was Carl Janssen who managed to take the lead and looked like the dominant force, but when he had an incident with lap traffic, Arto took advantage and finished less than a second actually ahead of Fabian Gerber. Something had him slowed up for the end of the race. We'll hopefully get to talk to him and find out what that was. Gerber just not very fast towards the first part of this one, but still took a second place, still a good haul of points. Martin Krejcik on the podium from starting 8th. He had a fierce battle with Steve Bycroft, so we might be able to hear one of their perspective later on. Phil Lake, he went all the way to the tail end of the GTP field on the first lap, recovered to a P4. That's been just about how much of his season has gone. You have to wonder what could happen if he gets a clean one under his belt. Fabian Jungluth takes 5th, and Steve Bycroft, who I mentioned, got turned around, winds up 6th. John Keefe from 14th to 7th for the number 25 car. And Carl Janssen, unfortunately, that damage that he got from that incident meant that all he could do was limp home to 8th. Vance Bow finishes behind him in 9th, and Tobias Gerber. Not the results we're used to from the number 18 car. He gets P10. Erwin Woodstra finishes 11th. Hideki Koivisto 12th, and Mark Schmedling 13th. Ryan Lang, the last of the GTPs who was able to finish, taking 14th. Let's go to the Audis there. Adam?
Coming home in P1 for the Audis is Joni Hagner after a dominant performance and staying out of trouble. We have Dennis Neidhart coming in P2 for the Audis. A very impressive performance out of him, especially with the troubles he was having on track. Nicholas Mukanos coming home in P3 after a good battle with Neidhart middle of the race. Ove Trangrade almost passing Mukanos on the final turn, coming home in P5. Then we have Milan Arnozzi after his troubles, P6, Ben Laughter, P7. And then after him, we have Jarno Sapola and Kevin Binkley coming home as well. Then we have Johnny Bell coming home in the GTP back there in the 23rd position overall. Sergey Serbin, Michael Haynes, Steph Schlacker, Stevanik Boris, Reed Miller, Stephen Warcup, Justin Albrecht coming home as well, and Luis Emerton, Tanner McCullough after his accident, Alex Saunders, and Rob Olenek after the accident in turn 1, lap 1.
A driver that did not suffer an accident is Joni Hagner. He's ready to talk to us about his victory. We've brought him into the booth. Joni, I have to say the qualifying really set the tone for what we expected in the race. 0.8 of a second between you and the next car. That is stunning.
Well, I was a bit low on practice this week, so only a couple of hours.
way to demoralize the rest of the field then, coming in and letting us know that, Jim. Oh, man, the rest of the field just seemed to have nothing for you. It looks like it was about 14 seconds at the line. When we were getting ready to call the race at the start, I asked Adam what his advice for the field was. He said patience. Is that really, you think, a big help for you out there today? Did you feel like you displayed a lot of that with the Nissans coming through?
Yeah, I got no rush, so I let them pass really easily and blink at my brake lights and make their life easier.
And it kept you safe when a lot of drivers really had horrible attrition out there. The next race we're going to, though, is going to be a much different track. Oulton Park is very, very cramped. It's very tough to pass. And you're probably going to see a lot more of those Nissans. Will you be around for that one over in England?
I don't know yet. I don't know next week situations for timing. But I hope so.
Yeah, we hope to see you too, because I have to imagine it's going to be a little bit harder to pull away like you did today. Congratulations. It continues to stun us, just the incredible pace that you show in this car, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Joni Hagner, our pole sitter to winner today. Lights to flag. Up next, we've got Adam ready to talk to Fabian Gerber.
Hello.
Yeah, Fabian, amazing race you had. It seemed like in the middle of the race, though, you were struggling a little bit for pace behind Carl and Ardo there. What was going on in the middle of the race there for you?
In the I had some I had I guess lower wings than a lower rear wing than the others, and I had great difficulties in traffic. So I just didn't have no grip. As soon as I had free track, I had the same speed, but there was some, yeah, it didn't work. I should only use this low wing when you're in lead.
Yeah, open setups making this series very interesting. So in those closing laps, when Carl had the accident, you're about 6 seconds behind Ardo Iamaki, and you closed it down to 0.9 by the end of the race. How did you make that run to the front?
Arto's tires were gone, pretty much, I guess, and at least he told me that at the end of the race. And I had good tires still because I looked after them, because I could look after them because I had no traffic for a while and no battle, so I had still pretty good tires at the end, so I could get onto him. Maybe one lap more or two, I could have tacked.
Definitely. And so this is a good points haul for you, probably maintaining your points lead. Are you looking forward to next week at Alton Park?
Alton Park was actually my very first race I drove in this series, so it's nice to be going back there. I remember it as very chaotic, but I like the track, so I look forward to it, yes.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that second place in that
Thank you very
podium
much.
for you.
Thank you.
Definitely. All right, and next up we have Joe Peak with Phil, I believe. Phil in and around the lake.
Absolutely. Fourth place finisher in that GTP class, but I didn't expect him to rise that high. Phil, the very first lap, tell us about what's going through your head when you suddenly find yourself facing the wrong way.
A lot of things. Yeah, not how I expected that race to start. And I definitely didn't expect to be in fourth by the end of it.
Yeah, you were slowly picking your way through. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see a whole lot of it. We would check in on you here and there, and we saw a few passes. But, I mean, what are the highlights for you on your climb back up?
It was mostly picking up positions from other people's mistakes. I made a few passes early on. Obviously, it's not nice when you start the race and you're already in the mix with all the Audis, and they're all in a close pack, so that was tough to get through. So not many highlights. I need to apologize to Milan because I made a really stupid mistake when I passed him the first time and cost him a few positions. So sorry to Milan.
Yeah, we unfortunately saw that one on replay during the race. And I know we've been talking a lot about it in the other two interviews, but I feel like there's just so much to discuss for next week and drivers' anticipation, because we've got the Alton Park without the Hislop. That's one chicane you guys have added in to it. Usually you run with no chicanes. Do you think that'll increase overtaking?
Probably not. I think Alton Park is very difficult to overtake. It's my favourite track, but it is super hard to race. You pretty much have to nail the qualifying, and if you don't make any mistakes, no one's going to pass you. I think adding the chicane in might help the Nissans pass the Audis, maybe. Although I think the one we're running is the one early on the straight, so that might not help. Yeah, that probably won't help then. But I'll be in the Audi next week because I've never run there, and it's, like I said, it's my favourite track, so I wanted to jump in my favourite car as well.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing how you fare with that. Again, congratulations on managing an impressive run up to fourth, and we hope to see you next week.
Yeah, see you there. Thanks, guys.
That's Phil Lake taking fourth. Up next, we're going to close out with Adam talking to Ben Laughter.
Ben, you had a pretty decent race there, starting in sixth, ending in sixth, but more importantly, Rob Olenek wrecking out in turn one, giving you most likely the points lead going into next race. What do you think about that?
I feel terrible about it. I mean, he and I have spoken about it already. We agree that there was some netcode involved, but I still feel like I overcommitted in the corner. on cold tires and simply took them out. So I feel bad about it. I mean, I love me some points, but that's not a great way to race a good competitor.
Definitely an unfortunate situation for both of you, honestly. And so going forward, did you, by the end of the race, did you think you were going to be able to make up any positions on Milan or Nozzi there?
I was making too many mistakes. I was overshooting corners. I was over rotating coming off of corners. So no, everybody in front of me deserved their spots today. I thought early on that I was going to be good. Sebring's a pretty good track for me, but I could just never truly get into my groove with the setup that I had on. It was just a bit too loose, and I just kept making mistakes.
It seemed like everyone was a little bit loose today. Speaking of loose, going into Olden Park next week, what are your feelings about that?
Fun track. I love them tight and twisty. That's a fun little track. So I'm looking forward to it. I think the only race that I intend to miss this season is whichever one happens during the Nürburgring 24. So I'm looking forward to all the others that aren't COTA.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Ben, for talking to us today, and we hope to see you next week.
Yeah, Adam. Thanks, guys. Good show as always.
All right, and that's going to be it for us and driver interviews. I'm going to toss it back to Joe to close us out.
Thank you, Adam. Of course, we usually want to thank a few people. Big thanks to Kamel GT community for coming back for another season of coverage, and also to iRacing for putting us on IESN. We definitely encourage everybody to subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. Go to the YouTube page and click that big red button. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts listed here on your screen. And additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Adam, Amjad, and Dougie. Update your script, Joe. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Next race, as we mentioned, going over to the British Isles for Oulton Park. That'll be Saturday, April 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, we'll see you on the track.